is a podcast or something like that. Hey, welcome to the Verbal Journal Podcast, episode 134. It's a public episode, so you might be just like a regular public type of person, and I respect that. This one's for you. Not for the patrons and the members, okay? Forget them. Seriously, this is not about them. I know we talk about them way too much. It's not about them today. Verbal Journal, it's a podcast I do. I talk about a variety of things, including, current events, research. We got a ton of research today. Am I already doing the part where I say what we're going to talk about? Normally I don't. That's not the immediate. Should I just go right into that? Okay. Yeah, keep them hooked. It's a good idea. My producer says, keep them hooked. Research segment will be extremely jam-packed, as I was saying. We'll be checking in with some fellas we like to check in with also, and then we'll have a website segment, which is kind of a new thing where we look at some websites on the World Wide Web. No image segment today. I'm just going to delete that. Maybe we'll do a meditation. We'll see how we feel. So we don't have an image segment, but we do have an image X audiovisual segment, which is really fun because it's a blend of two segments. You'll see what I mean. And then we'll obviously have the audiovisual segment proper. And then we'll do some follow-ups, check the mailbag, maybe do some improv if I feel like it, and then we'll get out of here. So, public episode, lots to talk about, lots of exciting things. Obviously, this is like I said, this is a public episode. This is not like the previous one, that was just for the members and the patrons where we talked about all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's not like the previous one before that was just for members and patrons where we also talked about a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, it's very similar to those two in a lot of the forms of it, but it's not the same. One exciting thing I wanted to tell you about is that we do have a clips channel. So from this previous episode, you'll notice it was 2 episodes ago. This is one segment that I did. And then it became immortalized on the Clips channel. So you can check out VJP Clips and check out some of our clips. They're very exciting. And we hit 50 subscribers. That's very exciting. That's due to me being really good at marketing, I think. I think we all agreed on that. My producer's turning away as I start to praise myself. Turn back around. Look, don't turn away when I'm talking about how... Yeah, they just turn away whenever I start praising myself. I think it's a new thing that they learned in some book about like child rearing, which they're reading. Can I say why you're reading that? Come on. When can I share your personal stories with? My producer's been going through a lot of things, some of them good and some of them bad. And I just, anyways, we'll talk about that eventually. Okay, so great. That's pretty much everything. First thing that we love to do here is we do the horizontal integration segment, which is where I integrate the podcast with the main channel, with the What's Therapy Corp. And I just wanted to say on that front, not a lot to say. Thanks for watching the videos, obviously. Go back and watch them if you haven't. And, sometimes you might be like, hey, man, maybe I need to watch those again. I will do a live stream soon about the, I haven't done a live stream yet after the price video, and I love to do a live stream after the videos. I actually have a bunch to talk about, and I'm saving up for that. That could be as soon as this week, so keep those alerts on. I'll probably post it a day or two early and give you a heads up and so on, so people can come if they want to come and hang out and do live streaming with me. Okay. Let's get right into the Goodish news segment where I talk about Goodish news, but super briefly because we're not a news podcast and I want these episodes to hold up in posterity so you can watch them back. To do that and to achieve that end, we touch on Goodish news, only news that has a Goodish vibe to it, and specifically, we just move through it, so that if you listen back, if you watch this in 10 years from now, it's still going to be funny and interesting. And you're not going to be like, why did they talk about the news for so long? You know what I mean? Because we're not gonna. And I always say this, but I'm getting better at it. So let's breeze through the Goodish news. First up on the Goodish news segment, NCAA ordered by jury to pay $18 million in football concussion lawsuit. That sounds really good. I think the NCAA should be taking accountability for these types of things. Federal government rules out changing copyright law to give AI companies free rein. This is in the UK, I believe. And yeah, that's good. Yeah, there are some very important cases going on right now, as far as I understand, for whether, like, how AI tools are trained. So, running water can be a constitutional right, says First Circuit. Where did this take place again? Puerto Rico, right? So very important that water and water is considered a constitutional right. You can read more about this stuff. Again, we are not a news podcast. I just want you to know about what's going on. So don't think of this as news. Think of this as things that's happening. Next up is Zionist ethno-state of Israel's industry figures from Doc Aviv, CoPro, and Kent turned down from International Documentary Film Festival in Amsterdam as the festival endorses boycott of companies affiliated with the Zionist ethno-state of Israel. Federal judge orders Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security to stop prejudicial statements about Abrego Garcia and his case. This is the man who has a wife and child who are American citizens and who has worked and lived in this country for many years and who was wrongly human trafficked to El Salvador, you might remember, so wrongly that this autocracy actually had to bring him back. And now they're trying to charge him with all this other stuff. And they're just trying to do anything so that Stephen Miller doesn't have to go to bed unhappy. But unfortunately, he will be going to bed unhappy. I can promise you that more and more as these days and nights come to a close. Judge intensifies oversight of agents in Republican President Donald Trump's Chicago immigration crackdown. Obviously, this past week, we saw the Border Patrol chief goon with the worst haircut and the most disgusting moral compass, Gregory Bovino, get chastised, and I don't know if he was spanked by the judge. I don't remember reading that he was spanked, but I don't remember reading that he wasn't spanked. So I honestly don't want to say anything too strongly either way. But, I don't think that's good. Spanking is not I don't think that's good for accountability for children. For adults, I haven't read the research on, to be honest. So, but probably it would be good to just have legal punishments. But yeah, he was throwing tear gas after the judge told him not to throw tear gas, but I'm sure he really had to, you know what I mean? I'm sure he really had to gas people. U.S. judge extends block on Republican President Donald Trump's mass layoffs during shutdown. Those were illegal. People who know about that stuff knew they were illegal. People who don't know about the stuff didn't realize. Judge said, yeah, those are illegal. Oh, I know this word. Haphazard. I know how to say that word. I've always known how to say that word. 2 Illinois National Guard members speak out, saying, I won't turn against my neighbors. More to come. Republican President Donald Trump's popularity dips as Americans sweat cost of living. His approval is the lowest, Ty's lowest level of this term. A lot of disapproval of his handling of the cost of living. Are you kidding? He's handling the cost of living by attacking Venezuela and innocent people in the Caribbean and allowing Israel to commit war crimes and allowing Russia to commit war crimes and, redoing the White House. How is that not helping you with the cost of living? Can't please everyone. Judge disqualifies acting U.S. attorney in California. Yep. Another administration attorney put forward who, not as legit as you might have thought. Okay, this is from earlier in the week, the article, but yeah, centrist party in the Netherlands did win against the far right party, so that's good. You don't want the far right party to be winning. And it does seem like the more that there's just so much instability in the world. So when a far right party wins, people kind of find out what that reality looks like. And I just hope that one day humans really learn to cultivate societies that incentivize more foresight and, but hopefully we learn from these mistakes ultimately. And it seems like we are learning a little bit. Jury acquits man accused of soliciting a Republican President Donald Trump's murder on Blue Sky. This is just a free speech case. Man was posting online. The autocracy tried to charge him with crimes when he was posting and well within his rights. And what I found really interesting is look at how this is Bloomberg law. Jury acquits man accused of soliciting Trump's murder on Blue Sky. So I'm just going to do a quick media literacy, critical thinking sub-segment here. Is that okay, Donna? Can I do that? Okay. My producer just ignores me whenever I ask any questions, so I don't know what to say. Is it okay if I... Yeah, okay, fine. So this is how Bloomberg law says it. Jury acquits man accused of soliciting Trump's murder on Blue Sky. And then this is how Bezos's Washington Post says it. Jury acquits Virginia man who called for Trump's assassination. Are you kidding me, Jeffrey? That's not... You can't do that. Like, if you see this, like, this is not how you write the article. Especially when someone is acquitted, you don't say that they did the thing they were charged with when they're acquitted. And that's quite a choice. Maybe let's see if they updated the headline since then. Nope, they didn't. No, they did not. That's crazy talk. Like, literally, it was someone accused of soliciting the murder, the accused of a crime, and then you report it as if they did the crime. That's insane. Jeffrey Bezos, you are insane for doing this. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to rein it in. Okay, I think I was using the word insane last time on the episode, and I thought it was okay, but I understand. I don't want to overuse it. I'm a therapist. I got to Mr. Bezos, I don't actually think you're literally insane for this. I understand it's just within your incentives to try to report as if people are committing crimes when they use their free speech, because obviously as an oligarch, you feel targeted by the same types of free speech that someone like Republican President Donald Trump feels targeted by. So yeah, it's just really fascinating to see. And when you read articles, you got to be critical of this type of thing. That's wild to say that this man called for Trump's assassination specifically in an article about him being acquitted, which means found innocent or not convicted. You can look it up. It means not convicted. So anyways, DOJ tried to subpoena an online trans healthcare provider. A judge quashed it. So this has been happening multiple times, and it continues happening. They don't like healthcare in general, but they certainly don't like healthcare for marginalized populations, including transgender people. But I do. I think healthcare is good for trans people, including kids. I think they need healthcare too. And it should be between them and their doctors and their parents, and the government should stay out of it when no one's getting hurt. U.S. judge praises prosecutors who were suspended after referring to January 6 people as a mob. So this is just really interesting because, like prosecutors referred to them as a mob, like within a filing, and then they were fired or suspended or whatever. And it's just interesting, like the war against truth. I mean, seriously. But I'll tell you, I was watching those live streams the day it happened. I mean... I know what happened on January 6th. It's just a mass gaslighting thing. Like, it's crazy. I mean, really, the immediate first day, dropping of the charges or whatever the specific term was, pardoning of like 1,600 people involved in this. That was a dark news item to see. I mean, this is really not good to have the autocracy being pardoning people who were like storming a government building to try to overturn an election. Again, if the election was actually stolen, I would support this type of direct action. But it wasn't. And truth does matter. King Charles III strips Prince Andrew of titles and evicts him from royal residence. Cancel culture is just completely gone wild. What is this? The radical left progressive... King Charles III wants to cancel culture Prince Andrew for what? A lifetime of associating with Jeffrey Epstein and also not helping authorities charge other men involved in the trafficking? Huh. So he's not allowed to live off the public dole in the UK anymore? For free after everything he's been given his whole life? What's he supposed to do? Look, Prince Andrew, honestly, I don't know if I can call you Prince Andrew anymore. Randy. I would just like get a job at a call center or something. You know what I mean? Maybe just get a job at a call center or like something where people like don't see your face, and maybe you could, do a different accent or something like that. I don't know. I watched a video this week. A great channel did a video about his interview with the BBC, and yeah, you should check it out. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but from a couple of years ago, it was great. A really funny interview. Okay, in historic move, MFA Boston returns works by 19th century enslaved artist David Drake to his heirs. Fantastic. UN human rights chief says U.S. strikes on alleged drug boats are unacceptable. Yeah, unacceptable, illegal, war crimes. And everyone doing them will be prosecuted, in my hopeful opinion. You can't be like, oh, we killed all these people, and they were all doing a crime, but we don't know their names, and we won't tell you their names. That's not cool. That's not okay. The U.S. has been doing this for way too long. U.S. judge blocks Republican President Donald Trump's administration from suspending food aid benefits. There were like 2 articles about this, I believe. Oh, no, this is a different one. Federal judge rules Republican President Donald Trump can't require citizenship proof on the federal voting form. Ex-EPA head urges U.S. to resist Trump attacks on climate action. We won't become numb. I agree. I think that's good. We should not become numb. Sorry, I was just looking for... Yeah, there were 2 judges blocking the suspension of SNAP benefits. So I'm sure so many Republicans were like, good, I'm really glad the judges stepped in there because we were about to look pretty bad. But they already look bad. I mean, it's crazy. Like, they literally had money in the banana stand for people's food, and then they decided not to try to use it. 3 Just Stop Oil activists cleared over Stonehenge protest. The trio argued orange powder protest day before 2024 solstice was justified because of focus on climate emergency. I certainly think so. And people should stop pearl clutching while we're destroying the planet. No one's going to be able to enjoy Stonehenge if it's underwater. UK pledges £4 million to clear landmines to help flow of aid to Gaza. So Goodish news, emphasis on the ish. £4 million. Is there no more money to clear landmines? As like the UK and the US and Germany and some other countries, but not the majority of them, have facilitated this genocide of the Palestinian people that the Zionist ethnic state of Israel has been inflicting. There are so many landmines now that people like are in constant danger. So I would say I want to see that figure in the billions. Obviously, the U.S. doesn't contribute to anything right now because this administration is the most selfish administration possible. But I mean, this needs to be hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to clear landmines. That's called making amends. That's called beginning to make amends. Los Angeles Contemporary Museum of Art employees unionize as museum works to open $720 million new building. So you got to unionize. And in U.S. first, New Mexico launches free childcare for all. Oh yeah, well, who's gonna pay for it? What? The government? Oh, the same way we fund everything. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, no, I see what you mean. Yeah, right. Okay, that makes sense. Families, regardless of income, can receive state vouchers to cover public and private child care fees. It culminates efforts New Mexico has made to expand access to free child care since the governor and state legislature created the Early Childhood Education and Care Department in 2019. Launch comes as other Democratic-run states, cities, and counties eye a step popular among working families. Yeah, working families love childcare. You know what I mean? Every working family is obsessed with childcare. Childcare this, childcare that. I'm spending way too much money on childcare. I can't afford childcare. You know what I mean? It's like a broken record. Like, geez. It's like the only thing they love more than eating is childcare. You know what I mean? It's like crazy. People have gotten so crazy. So yeah, Connecticut recently passed a bill making childcare free for those families earning under $100,000 per year and no more than 7% of income for those earning more. New York mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani has proposed no-cost universal childcare. Yeah, great. Okay, well, fair. No, I mean, this is really obviously fantastic. So, You love to see it. I do like when children are taken care of. I like when parents are able to have less stressful lives by not having to spend, their entire income on childcare. All right, we did it. We made it through the Goodish news segment. That's how it goes. That's a good representation for how it goes normally. So, in my effort to work on my own critical thinking skills, I've started trying to read more research, and I read research about a variety of things, but you don't have to read the full article. Sometimes it's just a matter of like dipping your toes a little bit, understanding kind of general ideas related to something, or just like understanding how evidence is gathered in an abstract way by thinking about it in relation to a particular subject, even one you might not know that much about. So today we're going to look at like a bunch of different research articles about a bunch of different subjects, most of them very current, and you might find this kind of interesting. So this is the research segment. Let's get into it. First up, this is interesting. Everyday norms have become more permissive over time and vary across cultures. So, we obviously know that norms vary across cultures, but it's very interesting that they've become more permissive over time. This is from just a couple weeks ago. And this is so sometimes we like to just kind of get the meat of it, right? So often what is a good thing to do is go to the discussion. If you're ever reading an article and you're like, that's a lot of words, that's a lot of numbers, you go to the discussion, they make it kind of clear for you. They mapped norms across 90 societies and showed that despite complexity, much of the variation can be parsimoniously explained by the interplay between a single cultural value dimension, individualistic versus binding morality. That's very interesting. And a few core everyday concerns. Wow, I want to come back to this, honestly. Societies vary considerably in their level of individualistic morality, yet show remarkable agreement on which concerns, vulgarity, inconsiderateness, lacking sense, are elicited by specific situated behaviors. Interesting. Norms differ between societies not because the meaning of behavior changes, but because the moral weight given to the concerns that behaviors elicit varies with societal values. So societies with higher individualistic morality have more permissive norms overall, reflecting liberty, but are stricter about behaviors that are inconsiderate, reflecting care, and odder, reflecting the common is moral intuition. Interesting. While being more tolerant of behaviors considered merely vulgar, reflecting less emphasis on purity. Interesting. I would be interested in seeing maybe a list of the countries, but flirting is vulgar. I agree. The nature of situationism across cultures. The impact of situationally dependent concerns, inconsiderateness, and lacking sense on norms was stronger in more individualistic societies. So situationism, the tendency to consider the situation when judging behavior. Interesting. Never heard of that term, but that does sound useful. May itself vary systematically across societies depending on which underlying moral concerns are prioritized. Okay, let's check out the list of... They must have a list of the countries, right? Or like a graph. Here we go. Nope. Are these countries? Oh, yeah. Wait, what? No. Oh, it's like, is it okay to like talk in a public park or at a party or at the library, at the movies? Is it okay to laugh at the park? You know what I mean? There's a lot of questions like that science can look at. I guess they don't list it. Here we go. I know it's not the image segment, and we don't have an image segment today, but we can look at this. It's part of the research. Individualistic morality. So at the top, we have Sweden, Uruguay. What is that? What is CRI? I don't know. I don't know everything. You know what I mean? We got Yemen, Ethiopia at the bottom, Benin. So it's interesting. I guess, I don't know. The estimated coefficients for societies scores on individualistic morality and their interactions with situation general concerns about vulgarity and inconsiderateness. So I'll be honest. I don't fully understand this. You know what I mean? I don't fully understand this, but I'm getting a feel for how someone would study permissiveness. So that's just kind of interesting, I guess. Next up on the research segment, human biomass movement exceeds the biomass movement of all land animals combined. So apparently, the biomass movement of marine animals, which is found to be the living world's largest, has been halved. Oh, shit. Since 1850 due to industrial fishing and whaling, while human biomass movement has increased by about 40-fold. Wow. Humans are kind of dominating a little bit kind of taking up a bit too much space. While massive whales migrate impressive long distances, I've always said that, the daily vertical movement of zooplankton and mesopelagic fish has far greater biomass movement. Wow, interesting. Wow. That's fascinating, I guess, because whales are so big. You know what I mean? Whoa, hello. Biomass movement. Oh, yeah, so humans are taking up way more biomass, and then fish are taking up way less. So overfishing is a huge problem. I wonder if government regulation could be the answer for that. Okay, well, okay, so cool. So I guess just think about this. You know, when you're moving around, think about all the fish that could be moving around too. Next up on the research segment, why is there more about biomass? Why is everything about biomass? The global biomass of mammals since 1850. Again, 1850. A lot of I'm seeing a lot of patterns here. My mind is like exploding with patterns here. While historical wild mammal biomass estimates rely on limited data and have various uncertainties, they provide a complementary perspective to species and extinctions and other metrics in tracking the status of wildlife. Despite moderate increase in the recent decades, the global biomass of wild marine mammals has declined by about 70% since the 1850s. This provides a broader perspective to observe species extinctions, with 2% of marine mammal species recorded as extinct during the same... Right, so huge declining in biomass, even if they're not all becoming extinct. It's another way to understand things. Metric tons, is that what that is? Damn. Yeah, I don't even know the units. Million tons. Right, that makes more sense. So, can we talk about something besides biomass? I don't want the public to think the research segment is all about biomass. Uncontacted indigenous peoples at the edge of survival. So this is from this year, I think very recently. And I like to just look at the executive summary because I think of myself as a bit of an executive. You know, as a social worker, I don't normally get to feel like an executive. So I just like to feel like an executive. Executive summary. There are at least 196 uncontacted indigenous groups and peoples living in 10 countries around the world. They are aware of the existence of outsiders, but they make an active and ongoing choice to reject contact. I don't blame them. Uncontacted people's homes are in forests, and their territories provide their shelter and livelihoods. They are also the core of their identity, culture, and resilience, and resistance. And 95% of uncontacted peoples live in the Amazon, especially Brazil. Yeah, when I was a kid, I read a book about one of these groups in the Amazon and one of them in the Congo. And I was always fascinated with this, and, you know, that's, yeah, like part of, you know, I'm just interested in people and there's different ways of life. And it's really special to learn about people who live in such a completely different way. And it makes you think about all the different ways societies can be structured. You know, as we move further away from this type of way of life, we can note the improvements, but we also need to note the challenges that come from, you know, living in our societies, losing senses of community in a variety of ways. But yeah, obviously these groups should be left alone if they want to. You know, they've been there for so long, and it's hard because, like, some of these groups are nomadic, and that you know, this world of capitalist land ownership is not really built for nomads. Okay, let's just keep it moving here. Next up, we got stillbirths in the United States. This is a very sad subject, but I do think it's important. A recent study came out. I couldn't get access to the whole study, but it's just interesting. Like, stillbirths, the death of a fetus at or after 20 weeks gestation impacts nearly 21,000 families in the United States each year. Although commonly perceived to be rare and unavoidable, stillbirth occurs in about 5. We try to not get into the nitty-gritty of numbers here because data is a very triggering subject for me. Yeah, I can say the word, but I just get triggered by it for reasons that you can investigate on the previous episodes of the podcast. But it's justified and it's valid. Anyways, stillbirth occurs in 5 per 1,000 U.S. births, but 10 per 1,000 among non-Hispanic Black individuals. So stillbirth is twice as common in African Americans compared to general population Americans. And nearly half of term stillbirths are thought to be preventable. Little progress has been made in reducing stillbirth rates in the United States in recent decades, probably due to issues with expanding healthcare access. In 2023, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services established a stillbirth working group. Yeah, wonder how that's going. It's a thing. You could say Democrats suck ass, but at least they'll, establish a stillbirth working group instead of like murdering children. Well, they murder children too. Well, still, at least they'll establish a stillbirth working group. You know what I mean? Okay. Next up. Larger striatal volume is associated with increased adult psychopathy. So that's very interesting. I'm not a neuroscientist or anything, but obviously, and I don't particularly work with a lot of people experiencing psychopathy, but it's very important to understand how this stuff works and how, what causes are at play and what's going on here. No, I don't like the highlights. That's too easy. I like to at least, skim like the abstract. So the thing is, right, like, what is this? Like, what are these parts of the brain? So this is a meta-analysis, and that's a pretty solid effect size, 44. That means 44% of the effects are explained by the variables they study, by the volumes of striatum. 44% of the psychopathy effects that they study, I believe this is understand. I don't really know all my stats, but it's something like that. A large amount of the effects are a result of the variable they study, the volumes of the striatum, rather than people's, what they ate that day or their, mom's middle name or whatever it might be, Nevertheless, variability exists. This study tests the hypothesis that striatal volumes are increased in adults with psychopathic traits, and that this relationship is mediated by stimulation seeking and impulsivity. So why would this be the case, right? They say, well, it's because the striatum, controls stimulation seeking and impulsivity, which could be significant factors in psychopathy. They looked at 108 dudes, subsidiary exploratory analysis are conducted on a small sample of females. Okay, that's that's scientific language. They say males and females. Correctional analysis showed that increased striatal volumes were associated with more psychopathic traits. So P and D are different things. I don't remember exactly what P is, frankly, or D. Effects were observed for all... I'm more of an R guy, honestly. Effects were observed for all striatal regions, controlling for age, substance dependence, and abuse, antisocial personality disorder. So they control for all these things. So they're not trying to compare people with ADHD against people without ADHD and so on. And antisocial personality disorder and so on. An analysis of 18 psychopathic individuals showed that striatal volumes were increased at 9.4% compared with 18 matched controls. Psychopathy and... I remember what P is. Oh, yeah, P is the possibility of it being just random chance. That's what P is, I believe. I'll follow up on the next episode if I'm wrong about that, on the private episode. Same with females. It was significantly associated. Stimulation seeking and impulsivity partly mediated the striatal psychopathy relationship, accounting for almost 50% of this association. Wow. So, okay. I guess, and then you could read the article if you want to really, and you could always use Sci-Hub if you don't have access to articles and so on. But yeah, it's just interesting to say that. I guess, it'd be interesting to learn more about how the striatum controls impulse seeking and stimulation seeking and impulsivity, and to understand that So there's a lot of differences in brains that can be, that can account for some of these differences in behavior. And it's just interesting because like psychopathy is obviously like a very abstract concept. So they try to break it down into more concrete things, stimulation seeking, impulsivity, and then break that down into even more concrete causes, which is the neurological functioning. Okay, next up on the research segment, impact of baleen whales on ocean primary production across space and time. So if we go to the discussion here to just get a read on what are we talking about, right? Because I don't know what a lot of these words mean. Conclusions, great. Using dynamic ecosystem models that couple high-resolution oceanography with nutrient phytoplankton, zooplankton, detritus model, our study assesses the potential ecosystem effects of whale excrete. So whale shit. By releasing nutrients via feces and urine, baleen whales recycle nutrients that are predicted to affect primary production. Although the annual effects are small in most areas, larger impacts occur during summer stratification in offshore areas. What is primary production? I do need to know that. Increased primary production has cascading effects on the food web with a predicted increase in zooplankton biomass. I guess it just means like really basic production in the ocean. So basically what this article is saying is whale shit is really important to the world. How important is your shit to the world compared to whale's shit, frankly? Primary production in the ocean by phytoplankton forms the basis for marine food web supporting an extent. Okay, so wow. So if your pet whale wants to take a shit in the ocean, let it. Next up on the research segment, physiological synchrony among human fishers during collective hunting with wild dolphins. I saw this the other day and I'm like, what the fuck is what? So apparently, they monitored 24 fishers using high-resolution chest belt sensors as human fishers, recording continuous ECGs and GPS positions and calculated interpersonal heart rate variability synchrony in low and high-frequency bands while tracking changes in foraging and social contexts. Positive social factors increased heart rate variability synchrony among fishers. So they found that when people were closer with each other, their heart rates varied more in line with each other, especially when they had more bonds. And then presence and activity of dolphins had no impact on human synchrony with their heart rates together, but they also found a negative association between group level hunting success. And so actually that's interesting. So when heart rates were more synchronized, there was actually less success with hunting. Interesting. I'm just confused about the role of dolphins here, but okay. Hunting performance and unique interspecies mutualism, artisanal net casting fishers who target fish with assistance from wild dolphins. Wow. So, but they're not testing the heart rate of the dolphins, right? That would be crazy, right? I think. Or are they? No. They're testing the human's heart rate synchrony, and they're showing that synchrony decreased when a fisher cast a net. Oh, interesting, because there's competitive tension, so their heart rate stops syncing up. They're like, hey, I want to cast a net. Dolphin presence and activity had no significant effect on heart rate synchrony. Can you fucking imagine? Like, oh, I'm going to test whether dolphins being present affects the syncing up of humans' heart rates who are fishing. Okay. That's fascinating, I guess. Many can visually identify individual dolphins and distinguish which ones are most likely to help catch fish. Yeah. The fishermen are like, that dolphin's fucking stupid as shit. Does not help. That one's lazy. That's the dolphin you want on your team. That's the dolphin who cares. That's the dolphin who's employee of the month. Okay, next up on research segment. So this is not an exact study because the study was in French and I don't read French. But apparently video game studios are violating American kids' rights by using opaque jargon-filled privacy policies to get uninformed consent, that is not real consent, and systematically exploit the personal data of children who play their games. They looked at 139 privacy policies and none comply with existing legal frameworks, American, Canadian, or Quebecois. So these video game companies are literally breaking the law and exploiting children. Okay, and lastly on the research segment, scientists reverse Alzheimer's in mice with groundbreaking nanotech. So nanoparticles heal the brain's barrier, reversed Alzheimer's in mice, ushering in a new era of self-repairing neurotherapies. So very cool. Nanotechnology is very cool. I'm not going to pretend I know too much about it. I'm not exactly an expert in nanotechnology, but let's just kind of get one little germ before we move on. Nanoparticles operate as therapeutic agents in their own right, built through a bottom-up molecular engineering strategy. They combine tightly controlled size with a defined number of surface ligands to create a multivalent platform with highly specific interactions at cellular receptors. By engaging receptor trafficking at the cell membrane, they provide a new way to modulate receptor activity. This precision supports efficient, I don't know, AB, I don't know how you say that, alpha, beta clearance, and helps rebalance the vascular system. That's it. So anyways, consider, if you have a pet mouse with Alzheimer's, consider looking into nanotechnology. I think was the point of that. I think that was the point of that. So the research segment is not always that long. And feel free to write into verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know if that was too long. Let me know if it was not long enough. But I just think it's important. I think we should all be reading research articles every day to just sharpen our brains. Keep in mind how science works, right? Because even if you're not doing science, similar sort of critical thinking is really important, and when someone says some crazy opinion to you, you can think, what would a scientist say? And maybe you'll be like, what's the evidence of that? That's what I like to say sometimes. This whole first part of the podcast that we've just done is important for kind of weeding out, people with not as much interest in these subjects, people with maybe not as strong attention spans, or just, it's important. It's part of the longevity of this podcast that we make sure that the good parts, which are about to come, this really the second half of the pod is the good part, but I make sure that it's for people who really earned it. So right now we have a segment that we actually did kind of start. I believe this was last time. But now it has a name, because last time it was just like, oh, look at this thing I found or something. But now it's called Checking In with Our Boys in Brown. So checking in with our boys in brown, there is a Reddit page for men or people in general who want to just follow orders and throw migrants in cages by joining immigration and customs enforcement and removal operations. They have a lot of issues, and they want to feel like a big man. And so some of them, go to this subreddit and they say, how do I, join? Why are the emails confusing? Do I have to be in shape? How do you sleep at night? They don't really say that last one, but I've already been kicked out of this group because I did have to intervene at one point and say, wow, yeah, just throw away your whole life and move across the country to throw migrants in cages. And after a brief exchange, I did get removed. But I'm still following, because our boys in brown are, really, they're there, and they're little guys on this website. Boys in brown obviously referenced to the brown shirts. Maybe not a perfect parallel, but I thought it was appropriate. Brown Hemden, or Sturmabteilung. Checking in with our boys in brown. I just thought this was really interesting. The post we looked at last week was deleted, but this one was not deleted, and I think part of that is because this is a moderator who posted it. I don't see it now, but it was it said that on the other version of the page. When I was looking at it, it said it was a moderator. But I don't know, because when you go to the Reddit, it doesn't really show you the moderators. God, that never happens. I just recorded 10 minutes of this and realized I wasn't recording. That does not happen often, and I blame my producer, obviously. I got a full thing of coffee here to help make up for it. But the good news is it was kind of did a bad job, so I can do a better job this time. All right, so yeah, it's not, this, they don't tell you who the mods are, so you can't see. The mod list is hidden, which I actually have never seen on a Reddit page before, but it's probably normal. Violations of OBSEC will result in removal without warning. Yeah, also criticizing ICE resulted in me getting blocked. So, this person posted, they were like, hey, we're having a lot of people who are out of shape, who are unprofessional, who are not mentally ready, people who can't even pass open note exams, a lot of surge hires, and these men should know they could be fired pretty much whenever because they're being hired under such strange conditions. And yeah, a lot of people, and this is funny because it's like the person who's like, I take pride in my job. We're not just about deporting people, we're trying to have like a good time here. We're not a deport them all, tough talk, racist nonsense. Buddy, tell that to the people running your agency and the people who are your boss's boss, bro. Like, when you have a cultural issue and like a environmental issue in your organization, often the what is it, the animal, the freaking fish rots from the head or whatever it's called. So yeah, we got lots of issues, a lot of men who are like, I didn't want to do this, I'm just gonna keep being a cop because this hiring process has been a joke. One person in this comment said that they never interacted with a person in the hiring process. They got like offered a job and never interacted with a person. This person, they says they didn't speak to one human face to face and they were like taken on, I think is what this means. Yeah, so, a lot of people appreciating the post to try to understand, oh, okay, yeah, this is what's going on here behind the scenes. Oh, this person's felt denied. Never got a call. Moving on. Yeah, I guess you just didn't have the zest for just following orders, I guess. Someone in here said like 95% of ICE is paperwork. So, a lot of these men are probably like not able to do that if they can't read. I don't, what I mean? But just something to think about, if you are going to move across the country or, travel many hours to throw migrants and people with legal status and citizens in cages and deport them. Something to think about, whether, maybe check out this page, make sure you're happy with how things are being run over there at the Just Following Orders Gestapo. Okay, so that's that. We didn't go into too much detail. I think it was the right amount of detail, just checking in with our boys in brown. All right, next up we got the website segment. So the website segment was something that started last episode when I found a very interesting conservative website for women. And we were just kind of, I was just kind of seeing like what makes them tick. You know what I mean? But today we're going to be talking about something quite different type of website. This is a website about the International Space Station. This is issinrealtime.org. And you can check out any time. Oh, wait, can we scroll out so people can see the top? So they have all these different years. You can go, okay, what happened in 2009? Or wait, I don't know why it's moving. You know what I mean? It's because I'm scrolled in. Okay, what happened in 2023? No, I want to go back. What happened in why is it scrolling? I'm trying to, okay, 2012. Let's look at, okay, 420. Let's go to 420. Let's see. I bet they were smoking weed probably. Probably the astronauts. Oh, we're going to catch the astronauts smoking weed on the ISS. That's going to be hilarious. Okay, and it was a Friday, too, so they were smoking weed. Orbit. So this is where they were on 4/20, 2012. And photos. Let's see. Let's see what they were smoking over there. Oh, they don't see. Yeah, notice how they don't have any pictures of the astronauts. But some of these, you can actually see some of the astronauts if you kind of look at the right one. Here, what is this? So the space station is essentially a station in space where people will go around, look at different things in space. And then, I don't know, I think it's just a way to kind of get away from their family and friends for a few years. You know what I mean? I'm kind of thinking that a lot of these astronauts, it's sort of like a coping mechanism, avoidant. It might be like an avoidant attachment thing. I'm sorry, I'm kidding, obviously. Okay, but yeah. You know what they say, though. One is not born an astronaut, but rather becomes one. This is very interesting, though. If you look in, you can see what they were seeing. And it kind of gives you a perspective on the world and how we're just like a big pale blue dot, or a little pale blue dot, essentially. So issinrealtime.org, very interesting, something to check out. Tell your friends, tell your family. You know, when people say to you, how am I supposed to know what was going on in the International Space Station on, friggin' July 2nd, 2008? You bring them to this website and you say, actually, there's a way I could help you with that. So, wow, this is cool. Can we look at this? Whoa, it's moving. I want to look at the astronauts. Open image in new tab. Yo, let's go. Astronauts. Okay. So that's the website segment. We'll be looking at different websites. Feel free to write into verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to suggest a website. Okay. Next up, this is a website, but it's not the website segment. This is the Image X Audiovisual segment where we look at, well, you'll understand. So, first up, a new expansive view of the Milky Way reveals our galaxy in unprecedented radio color. So I know what you're thinking. Radio color? Radio is sound. Stop right there, because basically they look at low frequencies that don't even show up on the visible spectrum, in addition to visible spectrum, and they get this situation. I believe it's in addition to the visuals, but you know what I mean? They just get a bunch of frequencies. I'll let these professionals explain. Okay.
This is the Galactic and Extragalactic All-Sky MWA Extended Survey View of our Milky Way galaxy. I'm Associate Professor Natasha Hurley-Walker at the Curtin Institute for Radio Astronomy and the International Center for Radio Astronomy Research.
Hi, I am Silvia Mantovanini.
That's cool. Yeah, no, you two are very cool. Let's just check out. Okay.
This is a view of our galaxy.
So on the right, you're seeing what you would look at if you had like really good telescope, essentially, I guess. And then this is the radio frequencies in a, like, not just a visible light, but radio frequencies.
In radio bands,
What?
as seen by the MWA array.
Look
The
at
Murchison Wide Field Array is a low-frequency radio interferometer. That means it observes at some of the lowest frequencies or longest wavelengths of
Whoa, look at how this big orange blob just comes out of nowhere.
radio interferometer. That means it observes at some of the lowest frequencies or longest
Amazing. That's just so
wavelengths
cool.
of light there are. It's located in Ilgari-Mana, Ilgari-Bundara, CSIRO's Murchison.
I don't know where that is at all. Like, I don't know in any way where that is. But look at these. Look,
Radio
this is how they do it. They get all these different, like, whatever, radio things.
Astronomy Observatory.
And
it's
they
the
work together, like the astronauts and like the humans and the dolphins when they're fishing.
precursor to the SKA, the
And they get a big thing. They get a whole image. Yeah, they get a big image. All right, I think we all get it. You know what I mean? Very cool. Space is very cool. Space is only noise if you can see. It's a deep cut. Okay, next up on the the Image X audiovisual segment, we have this, which is Spanish photographer captures world's first ever white Iberian lynx on camera. So this is which is this thing in the center of the frame. Very beautiful. It's white because it has leucism. How do you? Let's get the pronunciation right on that. Let's get the pronunciation right on that. Is that right, Donna? I think we should. All right. Let's get the pronunciation. Leucism. Okay. Well, I like to hear it. I like to hear it. I like to hear it.
Leucism.
Leucism.
Leucism. Leucism. Leucism. Leucism. Leucism. Leucism. Leucism. Leucism.
Sorry, that was a kind of a loose beat. Anyways, it's like being an albino, except that you have pigment in your eyes, apparently. So that's why it has such beautiful eyes, and it's people who are albino also have beautiful eyes, but that's why this particular lynx has beautiful eyes, and that's why it's looking right at the camera. But let's look at the audio-visual. Watching it on Instagram. No, I'll watch right here. Thank you very much. Very cool. The lynx is like, "Are you looking at me? Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?" That's what the lynx is thinking. Wow, beautiful. Beautiful. We love you, Lynx. We love you. I'm just posing for the thumbnail. Why am I pointing? I don't know. It was just hard to come up with the right expression when you're posing for the thumbnail. Like, what the hell? You know, I don't know. All right, so something to think about. You know, it could happen to any of us that we could, you know, run into a Lynx. So have your camera ready. All right, so next up, we're going to do something that I've been doing more on the podcast, which is just a quite simple meditation. You know, I think it's useful to just sometimes meditate and relax. And this podcast gets very stressful. So let's just meditate for a minute. Everyone just take a few deep breaths. You know, just chill out. We're just trying to learn to relax a little bit. And I'm taking you on my journey as I learn to relax. So meditating is just, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you could just sit, take deep breaths, kind of chill out, notice your body, feel your body. What do you feel? Try to get out of your mind a little bit, out of your thoughts. I mean, don't try to go out of your mind completely, but not enough podcasts just pause, you know, not halfway through. We're more than halfway through, but not a lot of podcasts just pause and let you kind of just breathe. That's the problem with a lot of podcasts. Way too much talking. You know, sometimes it's just good to do nothing. Who are we when we're not doing anything? You know, a lot of thoughts, it's honestly, like in a non-joking way, like learning to like not identify with certain thoughts or feelings, or like learning how to process a feeling without identifying it or taking on a specific interpretation of it. Same with thoughts. You know, it's really nice and important. Just trying to be more detached. I honestly want to like do more reading into Buddhism stuff. I have done like years ago, but I'm feeling more inspired to like get back into meditating. I think like just focusing on like meditating and critical thinking is helping me kind of like take control of myself in a world that feels really chaotic and out of control. So I recommend it. Okay, so for this next part, we have the audiovisual segment proper, which is always an exciting one. Arguably, it's what the whole podcast should be. Like, I think it would be more popular if the whole podcast was just the audiovisual segment, even if it was a lot shorter. But I refuse to do that again because we're weeding out the people who get bored easily. So here we are, and it's here. So celebrate a little bit. You know, it's the audiovisual segment. Kind of let loose a little bit, you know? Take it easy. And we try to sort of start with more serious stuff and progress into more silly, fun stuff. First up, we have, so Kat Abou-Gazela is a Democratic congressional candidate, and this is an ad she ran, and I'm showing you this because she has just been indicted, which I really don't think she will be convicted. The current autocracy is just indicting all kinds of people. A lot of them do not stick. A lot of the charges do not turn into convictions, but this is still incredibly serious, because they are criminalizing protest. And also, you notice they indict people who are victims of crimes of the administration. This has happened in many cases, including the woman who was shot 7 times with 5 bullets in Chicago. They tried to indict her. I don't think that's resolved yet. We'll check back in on that soon enough, maybe next episode. But they indict people who are victims of crimes of the autocracy to try to essentially Darvo. Reverse the victim and the offender, essentially. But yeah, this is an ad that Kat Abou-Gazela put out like 2 days or something before the autocracy indicted her. And you'll see in this footage, she's protesting at an ICE facility in New York. Sorry, she's running for Illinois' 9th congressional district. This was in Chicago. I'm sorry, y'all. But, you know, there's a lot going on. So this was in Chicago because she is a candidate for Illinois congressional district.
Kat Abu Ghazaleh was thrown to the ground by ICE agents.
We have watched as ICE has operated with impunity.
And
Concrete.
I'll just say I've followed Kat for a little while because she like worked for Media Matters and was doing cool content about like right-wing media and stuff like that. So she seems like a really cool person and has good politics.
ICE has operated with impunity in Chicago. They destroy homes,
Obviously, she has good politics when she's protesting these just following orders goons.
kill our neighbors, and disappear hundreds. ICE has arrested press. We've heard of grandmothers and pregnant women sleeping on concrete floors. Trump, ICE, and Kristi Noem won't even follow the Geneva Conventions. We are at a turning point. So are we going to stand up for the people, or are we going to let ICE do as it pleases?
Yeah. So we need more people like this. And it's so hard because like being in politics sucks and is so boring and lame. So cool people just barely ever do it. But like we do need cool people, unfortunately. Like they gotta, so thank you, Kat. I really hope you win. And I wanted to just highlight your situation as people need to pay attention to the criminalization of protests, especially, of a congressional candidate. So thank you very much, Kat, for your work. And next up on the audiovisual segment, we are getting into quite a different vibe here. So this is a deep sea sponge from, this is uploaded on EV Nautilus, great channel. And let's check out some sponge action. Oh, it's a long video. Okay, well, let's just see the beginning.
Can we take
Whoa,
a
that is
zoom?
massive.
Oh, great. Hexactinella glass sponge.
Easy.
What it looks like is it was growing on a rock or
Tilt
maybe
is
on a
on if you want
module, and it might have fallen
go
over
with
and
it.
started
So they're 4,400 meters below the surface of the ocean.
growing upwards after it fell. So it's kind of
Wow.
created this elbow shape. Yeah, I think it's a type of euplectellid sponge, glass sponge. And again, this is fantastic. You can see like the sponge has grown upward.
yeah.
I know, you can see is there like a shrimp or something on the bottom?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, you can see all the tiny pores
Go for the base of it if you can.
What's
The
that guy?
phylum
Who's that little guy?
of these sponges is porifera.
I'm gonna tilt down a bit, Aaron.
Multiple pores, pore spaces
Try to see the base.
to allow the sponge to filter feed, capture.
So a lot of people say my podcast is too confusing because we go from extremely like unrelated subjects, but I disagree.
Wow.
I think this has a lot to do with what we were just talking
Oh,
about.
nice job. That's beautiful.
All right.
Give you-
I'm gonna pick up. Go wide.
Nice.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Whoa!
Gosh.
What is about to happen?
Follow. Okay, we'll zoom in, please.
Whoa, it's
The
a different.
translucent
Awesome.
object on the left is a tunicate in the phylum Chordata, and the one on the right, I believe, is a type of carnivorous sponge. Interesting structures,
A carnivorous sponge.
but it looks to me like
It's
a
gonna
carnivorous sponge, but it has a different morphology than what we've seen on the.
Morphology just means like shape or body, as far as I'm aware. Wow, what's this guy?
Yeah, that looks good. Zachycalyx.
What do you think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it.
Jen also thinks it could be an Bacella.
Oh, right up in there.
Good.
Well,
Sorry.
we'll leave it to.
I think I have Atalanta.
Can you get out the? Does Little
let's
Hurt
come wide a little bit.
have a Q-tip manipulator? Clean the wax out of that thing.
That was funny. Got a giggle. Scientists are funny. Scientists are quite funny. All right, so last one. What is this guy?
You can pull out. I think we're getting moving.
Bye, sponge.
Do you really think it's an unidentified sponge?
Could be.
One of the most knowledgeable people I know thinks so.
So I said you really need a sample. Sponges are weird and
I think it was going to be amorphous.
amorphous.
Or I got some-
Yeah, it's looking at the.
Wow, that's so beautiful. It makes me want to paint. All right, so let's finish up the pod here so I can go paint. Next up, we have Billie Eilish said, if you're a billionaire, why are you a billionaire? So she was talking at a Wall Street Journal Innovator Awards where she was honored for her music. Honestly, I don't listen to Billie Eilish, but I respect her. I think she's cool, and she seems to make good music. I don't really know it that well, but it seems good. And I just wanted to show this, what she says. I know it's like seems cliche, you know, like there's something, but you have to kind of fight back about some of that cliche feeling stuff. Like the idea of like a famous celebrity speaking out about social economic issues, like that we need to like celebrate that. I mean, it's like, it's not worth being so cynical that you don't even accept stuff like this as as good. So anyways, let's just see what she said.
We're in a time right now where the world is really, really bad and really dark, and people need empathy and help more than kind of ever, especially in our country. And I'd say if you have money, it would be great to use it for good things and maybe give it to some people that need it.
It's the way she's just being so real and down to earth and just like saying it, like the tone is so perfect. It's almost like a little bit like how you would like talk to a child, but it's like respectful in that way. It's like, yeah, you're saying something obvious, but you're saying it in like a down to earth, like fairly respectful way.
And love you all, but there's a few people in here that have a lot more money than me. And if you're a billionaire, why are you a billionaire? No hate, but yeah, give your money away, shorties. Love you guys. Thank.
Great, and she's right. And obviously, there's much more important in terms of like billionaires specifically giving their money to organizations that can help like build democracy, and like not just giving their money away necessarily or laundering it through like the nonprofit industrial complex, but actually working for a better world. Like with like again, cliches are true. Sometimes, you know what I mean? With great power does come great responsibility. You know, I don't care if Spider-Man said that or Gandhi or Billie Eilish. Like, it's true. And, you know, it's worth reiterating to people's face. So if you know people who are millionaires or billionaires, you should be telling them this in a nice way. Notice how she's being like, you know, she's being direct, but you have to be nice. You have to give people that out where they can do the thing you want them to do, but like feel like it's their decision because it is, and also not feel like they were shamed into it per se, but that like that they were like incentivized to it. It's a fine line. Lastly, on the audiovisual segment, I just saw this and I was like, what the hell? Okay, Malcolm Gladwell posted where he's signing 1,000 copies of some book he wrote in 31 minutes. Look at this. And all the comments said exactly what I was thinking. Like, it's one thing to sign your books quickly and make a fun game out of it. Those are horrible signatures. I don't want that. It just seems so... Who would want that? Okay, I just want to say briefly, I don't read Malcolm Gladwell's books, and I don't have positive associations with them. I think they're probably okay compared to, like, useless books. You know, compared to, like, Jordan Peterson or something. I'm sure it's, like, great. I don't really like his books, and from the like I don't know like much about his books, but from the very limited amount I do know, there was something someone told me, and then recently a friend was reading one of his books and was telling me about it, and I immediately had this sense of like it was idealism and not materialism. So I could be wrong, and you could to let me know, but like that was my real sense of Malcolm Gladwell, that he suffers from this like public intellectual thing where he was being too idealist. By that I mean not like hoping for the best idealism, but like in the sense of like describing the movements of history and phenomena and stuff more through concepts leading one to another that are not necessarily grounded in like material reality or concrete evidence. Sometimes, so again, I know I'm speaking broadly. This is not a fair criticism. I'm just telling you my opinion from what I know. It's not a fair criticism because I'm not pointing to any specific reason for it or evidence, but just giving you my take. I get the sense that Malcolm Gladwell is like just like the sort of like comfortable liberals, public intellectual who doesn't really challenge things. But like, I just, from what my friend was telling me about this book he was reading of Malcolm Gladwell's, I was like, that sounds really like judging things based on concepts and ideas and not material reality. So that's my sense. And holy shit, Malcolm, like this was like such a bad look, and everyone agrees. Like, it's crazy. And like the way he's just throwing the books and everyone hates it. It's just crazy. I mean, it's really like I was watching this and I was like, okay, first thing I noticed was like, I would want the books to not be thrown. And I would want the cover to not be bent like that. And also, isn't the whole point of signing it like that there's been a author engagement with the book? And if the engagement is literally as short as possible, like, doesn't that hurt it? Dude, what? This is the face of a guy who's been hyped up way too much. So, weird stuff. Weird guy, in my opinion, weird stuff. So that's the audiovisual segment. We didn't watch Dave Rubin today. I made a conscious effort to not watch Dave Rubin today, and I hope you're all really proud of me for that. Okay, so now we have the classic follow-up segment. Honestly, not a lot of podcasts do this. What did you say for good reason, Donna? Now you're just like shading me while I'm doing the pod? Okay. So I follow up on the previous episode, and I tell you what I might have gotten wrong or right. Sometimes I'm following up and I'm like, I was so right about that, but usually I was wrong about something. Or often it's just like stuff needs a little bit more fleshing out. So at one point we were talking about immigration or the treatment of migrants, and I said this.
Like, there was like, I mean, even before the Holocaust, like, I believe there were several boatfuls of Jews turned away from the United States.
Yep. And the famous one is called the Voyage of the St. Louis. It's in May 1939. Sailed from Hamburg, Germany to Havana, Cuba. They were almost 1,000 Jewish refugees. Cuba's government refused to allow the ship to land. The United States and Canada also did not allow the passengers to get off. They were finally permitted to land in Western European countries rather than return to Nazi Germany. 254 of them were killed in the Holocaust. So they were turned away from the United States. They were not granted asylum. These individuals on this boat, these human beings. And keep in mind, and there's just another point about that. So, also, one other aspect of the situation was in the same year, 1939, the United States voted down bills that would have protected Jews fleeing the Holocaust. The U.S. and other countries could have saved thousands of Jews from the Nazis. We just talked about turning away almost 1,000 Jews. Jews are people, by the way, so really it doesn't matter that they're Jews. It's just people. Any people. And also, the U.S. Rejected a proposal of legislation to allow 20,000 Jewish children to come to the U.S. for safety. I'm saying all this because in this point I made in the previous episode, then I referred to popular in Cretan circles, white supremacist Stephen Miller, also Jewish and from a family of Jewish migrants to the U.S. I referred to his support for the 1924 eugenics-based immigration act called the Johnson-Reed Act, but I didn't know the name of it.
Because of laws that Stephen Miller is like re-implementing. I forget the name of the exact one, but you can look it up. It's true. And like,
yeah, so the same law that was used to justify not allowing this disgusting, morally incompetent individuals, family members, ancestors, people like them, from being safely granted asylum in the United States. That's a law that he is, hearkening back to. the 1924 Immigration Act severely restricted immigration to the United States from certain parts of the world on what observers say were racial and eugenics grounds. Hitler subsequently praised the legislation as a model for Germany. So Hitler praised the legislation that Stephen Miller wants to have back in action, according to emails he sent to editors and reporters when he worked at Steve Bannon's white supremacist outlet Breitbart, funded by billionaires and so on. It's Miller wrote, and his own relatives have criticized it. It's important to understand the history of this stuff. So, as they try to only allow white immigrants from South Africa, you can understand, like, this has always been the racist policy of the United States. It ebbs and flows, and some administrations are more racist and literally using eugenics policies that are then copied by Hitler. Remember when the Republican President Donald Trump told the campaign meeting last year that if it was up to Stephen Miller, there would only be 100 million people living in the U.S. and all of them would look like Miller. But that was just a joke, probably, right? He's the president's id. Interesting. Maybe they need a superego called the rule of law. It's just interesting, like something to understand, so you can look back into those emails he sent about, trying to get us back to a policy that was copied by Hitler. And I believe I just have another source or two on this. You can also consider this article, The 1920s Immigration Mistake America May Repeat. Can we get access to it? Yeah. So you can see, you can read more about this. They tried to just make it so specifically these Eastern European migrants were not allowed in. And then 40 years later, finally in 1965, the U.S. retreated from that extremism that we are now returning to. And one other source on that. The Real History of American Immigration would be a great piece for you to read if you'd like more information on that. On why Stephen Miller is a step in the direction of Hitler. Literally. And he will face a similar... I don't know what he will face. I can't predict the future. But he will definitely face accountability. I hope he faces more accountability than Hitler. And we can make that happen. We should hold all these people accountable and say, hey, we're not actually going to be a eugenics country anymore. We're going to try to do less eugenics. We're going to try to decrease the amount of eugenics that we do as a country rather than increase. That's my personal opinion. We should become less like the country Hitler modeled Mein Kampf after and more like the country that we could be. The other thing I referenced this earlier, but I was talking about Daniel Naroditsky's death, which is extremely tragic, and I was talking about the bullying that he suffered from former world chess champion Vladimir Kramnik. And I was calling Kramnik insane, and I wasn't diagnosing him as insane, but I was using the word insane to get across how detached from reality he is. In these accusations, I don't care whether he's literally insane. I was using the word to denote how completely unhinged he has been. And I'm using that word because I think it's important for us to be able to identify when other people are completely limited, not dealing with the same set of facts we are, or the same sort of set of priorities, or, there's a level of detachment from reality that I think it's useful internally to identify someone as insane, off their rocker, unhinged. And I know that as a therapist, you might be like, well, you shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. I'm not diagnosing him. You know what I mean? I'm not diagnosing him. And as I was thinking about it more after the episode, because I was like, wow, I really said the word insane a lot. I just want to make it clear, insane is not a clinical term. I just want to make that clear. I've been in social work for 10 years now. No one uses the word insane. It's not a clinical word. And if you see It's, you can read more about it. It's a legal and cinematic diagnosis. It's been retired from medical nomenclature for about 100 years. So I'm not trying to say Kremenek is legally insane, but I also was not saying he's clinically insane because that's not a thing. So I just want to make it clear. Really, the best thing for me to say would have been that Kremenek was wrong. That's what I really meant. He was wrong. That's more accurate. He was wrong to do what he did. It's not necessary to call. The only reason I'm using words like insane is because I think we need to be able to identify when someone's completely off base and like when we do not have to listen to what they have just said about us. You know what I mean? Like when, like you can always take it in, but like don't take it in and then process it and let it go away. Because at a certain point, not everything everyone says about you is accurate or worth considering deeply or worth like holding on to. So that's why I use the word insane. But yeah, I mean, he'll suffer consequences. FIDE, the International Chess Organization, like people are really upset about the way he treated Daniel Naroditsky and a lot of other people. Okay, second to lastly on the follow-up segment, what did we have here? So we were talking. What do we have here?
No, he's only been allowed to marry for like 10 years in this.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about how Dave Rubin is a gay man who supports a party that wants to crack down on rights of gay people, which is always an interesting topic in terms of cognitive dissonance, but he's probably been paid enough to not think about it. But there was just, what was this? Oh, okay. So they're talking about this person, Karine Jean-Pierre, who was like the spokesperson for the White House under Biden, and she's like published a book about, it's sort of like a why I left the left thing, but not as hardcore as these two who have actually become right wing. So they're criticizing this sort of grifter for being like, whatever, but they're like even more grifters. So it's kind of a funny dynamic. But they're criticizing her for the stupidest possible things. I can show you a picture. They're criticizing this person, and they're criticizing her for very stupid things, including that she mentioned being a part of the LGBTQ community, and that was a big deal to her to be like the first. I think what was it? Well, this is what we're about to get into. Okay, so here's what they say about this person. I just think it's really interesting. Keep in mind that Dave is a gay man, also, but like he's still okay talking like this. Okay.
They've been allowed to marry for like 10 years in this United States of America. He doesn't think they're going to try to roll back his rights. So this is how they talk about LGBTQIA people.
Lesbian. Here. Yeah, like, okay. That's the very first thing that she ever said at that podium when she was introduced. I am the first black, queer. By the way, she says, I'm LGBTQ. Dave Rubin.
Separate the letters.
Can you be all of them and the plus, the IA?
So I gave my take. You can watch the episode, but like obviously that's a very stupid thing to say. You can be a part of the LGBTQIA community. You don't have to identify with every single term. They have commonalities, marginalized gender and sex identities. It's not that complicated. These two people playing dumb. But then just to clear, but yeah, this is wrong what Sage just said about what this woman said from the podium. She explicitly referred to Jean-Pierre's first press conference, which is easy to find. This stuff is all public information. And so if we find the quote, Jean-Pierre said, I am obviously acutely aware that my presence at this podium represents a few firsts. I am a black, gay, immigrant woman, the first of all three of those to hold this position. There is no mention of being part of the LGBTQ community. It's not. I just searched LGBT and it's not mentioned in the press conference. Not that it would be wrong. Obviously, you can be a part of the LGBTQ community. You don't have to hold every identity. That's how communities work. So Sage was lying, I guess. I don't know why she said that, because she explicitly said that it was said at her first press conference. I had another quote briefly. What is this about?
That deep. Like, it just means that, I'm just looking. So, Corinna Rubin's, I don't know. I mean, I have to find the exact quote she said.
And I did. I found the exact quote. I did. Why did I just play that? I didn't need to play that. But yeah, I did find the exact quote. Also, like, I think Sage would be applauding that it was a black woman being the spokesperson if it was for Trump, frankly. And I think she would say, wow, that's like a clear sign of like lack of racism. I mean, like we talked about that conservateur website. Oh man, this is going to be slightly hard to find. But yeah, we were talking about this website last time. And it was so funny. And like, I think, was this the article? They might not publish a lot of articles. It's probably like a money laundering scheme, I would guess. But yeah, they, about Melania's fashion sense. But yeah, they had, it might have been a different article, but they were like naming all the women who are in the administration to show like how not misogynistic, obviously, this extremely misogynistic administration is. And I just found that really funny because you have a conservative magazine using identity politics to say, oh, it's obviously not. Yeah, they didn't like Taylor Swift's album. Anyways, I'm not going to find the article, but you can go back to last episode. And it's just interesting because obviously that's different than Sage Steele. But I do think Sage would use the same logic if Trump had a black woman speaking from, the podium, a black gay immigrant woman. Sage would say, well, doesn't that show how Trump and the Republican administration is not actually racist, misogynist, and xenophobic? I believe she would make that argument. But she just wants to laugh at this woman for being proud of being the first black gay immigrant woman speaking from the podium. And it's funny, like Sage probably tries to close her eyes and plug her ears to the obvious racism of this administration choosing a very particular type of person to represent them at every single possibility, at every single moment. Okay, and lastly, much more minor, I just had a little slip of the tongue.
Just so anxious to separate himself from the identities that are actually currently being targeted more.
I said himselves. I meant himself.
So anxious to separate himself from the...
Sorry, I meant to say himself, not himselves. Okay. So we are now going to check the mailbag, which is when people write in to verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com and they say all kinds of stuff. We get so many messages that we often don't even get a chance to read them all. But I will check, and let's go down the list. Which email should we open today? Okay, no one wrote in. That's good. Because it's already been a kind of long episode. We're not going to do improv today. I'm going to save that for the private episode, but we're going to get to it. I'm not joking. We're actually going to get to it. And I'm really excited to do a different episode next week. That's going to be totally different, except for all the parts about this that you liked, which will be the same. All right, so let me thank the members and the patrons. First, I'll thank the patrons, because I think I thanked the members first last time. So thank you to the patrons. We got a couple new ones even. I'll start with the new people and go to the older people. Thank you, Muad. Thank you, JCS, Merrick, CJ, Ben's Life, Brandon, Handyman, Felix, Marcy, Will, Downcast Lashes, Stepan, Coolbean, Spaghetti Gal, Isabel, Milky Way, Ryan, Jay, Grace, Raymond, Garrett, Simply Snaps, Caffeine, Parker, Dakota, Aiden, Noah, Burrow, Perpetually Jackson, A, Islack, Miranda, JP, Ibnomad, MK, Matt, Noah, Anastasios, King, Tom Hugh, Redgrove, Elemency, Platinum, Rabid, Ian, Russ, Irene, MJ, Ludwig, Ryan, Madeline, Brent, Molly, Ashley, Scott, Gunther, Thulusaurus, Rex, Miles, and User. And thank you to the members on the YouTube channel, on the main channel. Thank you to the members. Spillfish, Little Mia, Mobius, Succinate, Colycraft, Matthew, Jasmine, Simply Snaps, Jifa, Hollow Moon, and the classic Pit Inhabitant. Hope that pit is feeling well inhabited. All right, so that's it. And this is what we do here. So I'm going to get out of your hair here and let you have a good rest of your day, night, or whatever. Catch you later. Feel free to become a member. Support the channel if you'd like. I really appreciate it, and it's helpful if you have money to spare, but don't feel any pressure to if you don't, and so on. And I'll catch you on the flippity flop. Okay. Bye. This is a podcast.